What if the iridescent bowl sitting on your grandmother's curio shelf, the one that throws little rainbows when the afternoon light hits it, is worth more than every piece of furniture in the room? 10 pieces of old Carnival glass have quietly sold for hundreds, thousands, and in one case, $155,000, and the one most of you actually own is sitting at number one. Let's find out tonight if it's in your house. Here is the truth almost nobody tells you about Carnival glass. The rainbow shimmer is not the value. Real money hides in a few details that stay invisible until someone shows you where to look. The maker, the pattern name, the base color hiding underneath that iridescent surface, and whether the piece was pressed in an American factory during a very specific window of time. If yours has been sitting on a shelf for decades, dismissed as a pretty carnival prize your grandmother won at a county fair, that is not carelessness on your part. It is that no one ever taught you to turn the piece over and read what the glass is actually telling you. Tonight, somebody will. We start at number 10. Number 10, the farmyard bowl. Somewhere in an estate box or behind a row of dusty vases, there is a large, deeply patterned bowl covered in a busy design of roosters, fences, and farmyard scenery. Most people glance at it and see a decorative dish. But that pattern has a name, and it is one of the most sought-after designs in the entire Carnival glass world. Farmyard was produced by the Dugan Glass Company, which operated out of Indiana, Pennsylvania in the early 1900s. Dugan made this pattern in very limited quantities, and the combination of its intricate mold work and its scarcity has turned it into something collectors will fight over. Here is where the numbers start to climb. An 11.5-inch purple farmyard bowl with an 8 ruffle beaded edge has sold for over $3,000. In rarer colours, the figure climbs higher. The irony is that Dugan Glass carried no consistent maker's mark for most of its production, which means the farmyard bowl sitting in your aunt's china cabinet might have no name on it at all. Most people see that blank bottom and assume it is nothing. It is not nothing. It is one of the most valuable patterns in American pressed glass. Number 9. Anything from Millersburg. Pick up a heavy piece of Carnival glass with an iridescence so deep it almost looks wet, like oil on water, and you may be holding something from the most tragic and collectible glass house in American history. John Fenton left his own family's famous glass company in 1908 to start his own factory in Millersburg, Ohio. The glass he produced there was extraordinary. Patterns like hobstar and feather, blackberry wreath, and the legendary People's Vase are considered among the finest iridescent glass ever made anywhere in the world. Here is the part that makes Millersburg so dangerous to overlook. The company lasted barely 3 years before filing for bankruptcy in 1911. 3 years. That means every single piece of Millersburg glass is rare by definition, because the factory simply did not exist long enough to produce large quantities. A Millersburg People's Vase in blue, one of only 8 known to survive, sold at auction in 2018 for $155,000. In late 2024, a previously unknown blue People's Vase with a ruffled top was discovered in an estate clearance and sold for $250,000. I need you to understand what that means. A piece of pressed glass made in a small Ohio town that most Americans have never heard of sold for $250,000 because it was rare, because the company that made it died young, and because nobody at that estate knew what they had until somebody did. Number 8. Signed Northwood with the underlined N. Here is the one name in Carnival glass that changes everything the moment you find it. Harry Northwood was a British-born glassmaker who opened his own company in Wheeling, West Virginia in 1902, and by 1908 he was producing some of the most beautiful iridescent glass the American market had ever seen. His patterns read like a collector's wish list: grape and cable, peacocks on the fence, good luck, 3 fruits, rose show. But here is the tell that separates a guess from a certainty. Northwood marked many of his finest pieces with a small underlined capital N inside a circle, pressed directly into the glass. It is the most recognized maker's mark in all of Carnival glass. You will usually find it on the inside of the base, sometimes on the outside. It is small, and on a dark-colored piece you may need to tilt it under a light to catch it, But if that little N is there, your piece just changed categories. A signed Northwood grape and cable punch set in a rare color can bring well over $1,000. A rose show plate in ice green, with fewer than 5 known to exist, is worth multiples of that. Northwood died in 1919 and the company closed in 1925, which means every signed piece you find is at least a century old. Check the base. Breathe on it if you have to. The fog makes faint marks jump out. Before we get to the top 7, there is something about all of this that most people never quite put together, and it is the reason so many valuable pieces end up in donation boxes for pennies. The pieces worth real money almost never look expensive. They sit in curio cabinets, in estate sale boxes, in church rummage piles, passed over because someone decided they were old-fashioned or gaudy, or just carnival prizes. But the shimmer was never the thing. What separates a $15 bowl from a $15,000 rarity is a short list of physical clues. The maker, the pattern name, the base color underneath the iridescence, the shape of the piece, and the condition of the finish. Almost no one is ever taught to read them. That is the whole reason these pieces keep walking out the door for nothing. Number 7. The color nobody wants, that everybody should. This one flips most people's instincts completely upside down. If you have a piece of carnival glass and it is marigold, that warm golden orange that looks like amber honey in the light, your first thought is probably that it is beautiful and therefore valuable. Here is the correction that costs people the most. Marigold is the most common carnival glass color by a wide margin. It was the cheapest to produce, the easiest to sell, and the one that every factory made in the highest volume. The colors that bring real money are the ones most people overlook or even dislike. Ice blue, ice green, aqua opalescent, white, red, Vaseline, that eerie uranium yellow that glows under a black light. Northwood introduced his pastel colors, what he called pearl, azure, and emerald, in January of 1912, and he made them in tiny quantities compared to marigold. A Northwood piece in ice green can be worth 10 or 20 times the same pattern in marigold. Here is where the instinct fails. The flashiest, most golden piece on the shelf is usually the least valuable, and the pale, quiet, almost white one you barely noticed is the one a collector would drive across 3 states to buy. Do not judge carnival glass the way you judge jewelry. The understated colors are where the money hides. Number 6. The reproduction wearing an antique costume. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Not everything that shimmers like old carnival glass actually is old carnival glass. Starting in the 1960s and accelerating through the 70s and 80s, American glass companies began reproducing classic carnival patterns for the nostalgia market. Fenton itself, the company that invented carnival glass back in 1907, reissued its own patterns for decades. Imperial Glass did the same, and overseas factories, particularly in Asia, produced outright fakes, including pieces stamped with a crude version of the Northwood N that is neither properly underlined nor set inside a circle. Here is how you protect yourself. A genuine Northwood N is small, precise, and always underlined with a line that sits inside a circle. The fakes are larger, cruder, and missing one or both of those details. On pattern reproductions, the mold detail is the tell. Original carnival glass has crisp, sharp pattern lines because the molds were new. Reproductions made from worn or recast molds look soft, rounded, almost blurred, like a photograph slightly out of focus. Pick up 2 bowls in the same pattern, one original and one reproduction, and the difference is obvious to your fingertips before your eyes even catch up. Feel the sharpness of the mold lines. If they are crisp enough to catch a fingernail, you are likely holding the real thing. Number 5. The shape that changes everything. Most people do not realize this, but 2 pieces of carnival glass in the exact same pattern and the exact same color can differ in value by a factor of 10 or more depending on their shape. Here is the rule. Bowls are common, plates are rare. The reason is mechanical. When carnival glass was pressed in a mold, the same blank could be shaped into different forms while the glass was still hot. A bowl was the easiest shape to finish, which is why bowls dominate the market. A flat plate required more skill and more time, and factories made far fewer of them. A Northwood Good Luck bowl in amethyst might bring $100 to $200. The same pattern pressed flat into a plate can bring over 1,000. The same principle applies to other unusual forms. A rose bowl, a compote, a punch set with all its cups, a rare whimsied shape where the glassworker pulled or stretched the piece into an unexpected form. The stranger the shape, the fewer that were made, and the fewer that survive. If you have a flat plate in a known pattern and a strong colour, you may be holding one of the most underestimated pieces on any shelf. Number 4. The iridescence test that takes 10 seconds. Here is a trick experienced collectors actually use, and you can run it right now with nothing but a window. Pick up the piece and hold it so that natural light hits the surface at a low angle. What you are looking for is not just whether it shimmers, but how it shimmers. Original Carnival glass from the classic era, roughly 1907 to 1925, was treated with metallic salts, including tin chloride, that were sprayed onto the hot glass and then fired. The result is an iridescence that sits in the glass, not on it. It has depth. It shifts through multiple colors, blue to purple to green to gold, as you turn the piece. Collectors call the most intense version of this and electric iridescence is the single most desirable quality in any piece of Carnival glass. A reproduction or a later revival piece often has a thinner, more uniform shimmer that looks painted on rather than embedded. It will flash one or two colors, but not the full rainbow spectrum, and it fades faster in direct light. Hold it to the window, turn it slowly. If the surface comes alive with color that seems to shift from inside the glass itself, you are looking at the real thing. Number 3, the base color hiding underneath. This is the detail that separates a casual admirer from someone who actually knows what they are holding, and it is the one most people skip. Every piece of Carnival glass starts as a piece of colored or clear pressed glass before the iridescent treatment is applied. That starting color is called the base color, and it is the single most important factor in determining rarity after the pattern. Here is how you find it. Hold the piece up to a strong light and look through the thinnest part of the glass, usually near the rim or along an edge. If the glass underneath the shimmer is clear, your base color is marigold, the most common. If it glows a deep purple, that is amethyst. A rich dark blue is cobalt. A soft milky green is ice green. And if it glows a pale yellowish green, almost neon, you may be holding Vaseline glass, which contains trace amounts of uranium oxide and will glow bright green under a black light. The base color is what the factory chose before the iridescence was added, and some base colors were produced in quantities so small that finding them today borders on an event. A piece in red Carnival glass, for instance, was made by layering red over a clear blank, and the process was so expensive and unreliable that very few survived. One look through the rim, 10 seconds under a lamp, and the base color tells you more about the value than anything else on the shelf. Number 2, condition, the quiet destroyer. This is the one that humbles every optimist, so let me be straight with you. A rare piece of Carnival glass in a coveted pattern and a rare colour with a chip on the rim is not a rare piece with an asterisk. It is a fraction of its perfect self. A chip on a $2,000 piece can cut the value by 50 to 70%. Here is your inspection, and it takes 30 seconds. Run a fingertip slowly along every edge of the piece, especially around ruffled or scalloped rims where the glass is thinnest and most vulnerable. A catch you can feel is a flea bite, and it matters. Hold the piece to the light and look at the iridescent surface itself. If it looks dull, hazy, or washed out in patches, the metallic finish has been damaged, sometimes by harsh cleaning, sometimes by decades of sunlight, and it does not come back. Iridescence that has been scrubbed off with abrasive cleaner is gone forever, and if the piece is part of a set, a punch bowl with missing cups, a water pitcher without its tumblers, the incomplete set drops hard. The single biggest heartbreak I see is a beautiful old piece quietly downgraded by one flaw the owner never felt with their fingertips. Which brings us to the piece almost every one of you actually has. Number 1, the marigold bowl in the china cabinet. If you grew up in an American household any time in the last 100 years, there is a very good chance your grandmother, your great aunt, or your mother owned at least one piece of marigold carnival glass. That golden amber-toned bowl with the iridescent sheen, the one that comes out at Thanksgiving to hold dinner rolls or sits permanently on a doily behind glass. It may have been a carnival prize. It may have been a grocery store giveaway during the Depression. It may have been a wedding gift in 1920. You may have quietly assumed it was worth a fortune by now. So let me tell you the honest truth, because I respect you too much not to. On today's market, a standard marigold carnival glass bowl in a common pattern changes hands for $15 to $30, sometimes less. The collectors who built these collections are aging out, and the younger buyers simply are not chasing marigold the way their mothers did. That is the hard flaw. But here is the other half, and it is why this one sits at number one. Not all marigold is equal. A marigold bowl in a common imperial or late Fenton pattern is a shelf filler. But a marigold bowl in a Millersburg farmyard pattern, or a Northwood peacocks on the fence, or a Dugan pattern that was only pressed in small runs, is a completely different proposition. And a full marigold punch set with all its cups, signed Northwood in strong electric iridescence, can still bring well over $1,000. Notice what just decided that. Not the colour. It was the maker, the pattern, the shape, and the condition of the finish. The exact four things you checked on every piece before this one. That is the whole secret of the China cabinet. The rainbow shimmer never set the price. The maker, the pattern, the base colour, and the condition did. And now you can read all four. So before you box up a single shelf for the donation pile, before you take the first dollar a picker offers you at a yard sale, do the thing almost nobody does. Turn the piece over. Look for the mark. Hold it to the light and check the base colour. Feel every edge with your fingertip. The value in old carnival glass was never the sparkle. It was the factory that pressed it, the pattern the mould cut into it, the colour the glassmaker chose underneath, and whether 100 years of hands have been kind to the finish. Those four things do not care whether your daughter thinks the piece is dated. In decades of watching estate glass, cross tables, and auction blocks, the saddest words I hear are, "I had no idea, so I let it go for nothing." You do not have to be her. Do not empty that cabinet until you have checked the base of every single piece. Not one.